That's us live now. So, good. Is it good afternoon? Yes, good afternoon, Derek. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you, Paul.
Good. And just so that nobody is confused by either my flags or your tartan background, you are originally from about 30 miles up the road from where I am in Galashiels. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm from a wee village called White Creek, which is just outside of Edinburgh.
Yep, that's right. Which is right on the edge of Dalkeith.
Very true indeed, yes.
That's right. And one of the schools that you went to there was Dalkeith High School.
Well, St David's, but
yes.
But literally, it was based within Dalkeith, but the schools, St David's and Dalkeith High, actually amalgamated as one.
That's right. Yes. So you went to the same school as Luke Mitchell and Jodi Jones.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So St David's, that was the one at the top end of the town, at the top end of.
Yeah, it was up. Is it Albert Road? It's just down from where the police station would be, and the colleges and things like that.
Right.
Up there.
Yeah. Just as you're coming into Dalkeith, you've got Woodburn on the right-hand side, and is it the school is on the left?
So now you would take a left, just as you're coming up towards Woodburn, and you'd head up, and then if you were
into Mayfield,
up towards Mayfield, East houses, you would literally turn left. And it takes you into the campus now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just one point. Have you got a music stand there?
I have, yeah.
Yes, I think you keep kicking it with your foot.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's just that it's one of those things that you know when you go to the accordion club and you've got somebody that's got the mic stand in front of them and their foot is constantly on the mic stand. Right. You've seen that before, haven't you? Countless times.
Yeah. I wasn't aware it's proper as well. When it's on the carpet, it's quite easy to move.
Yeah, we thought maybe you were having issues with the plumbing, but it's not. It was just your foot against the music stand. So Derek, how long have we known one another now? Then How long would that be?
I would say since I was about maybe 13.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be looking at around about 20 years.
Yep.
Roughly now.
Yep. Yeah, I remember I used to come along to. I can't quite remember how you got in touch with me. Who it was through? It might have been through the Nitton Grange Accordion and Fiddle Club.
It was actually, when I think back now, I was actually getting lessons through the Wilson Pride School.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it was the point that Wilson had actually got to the point that he felt I needed more direct tuition.
Yeah.
And then I was actually recommended to get lessons from yourself. So my mum and dad arranged that, and it was, and that's how it all came about. But I'm really glad they did so.
and it wasn't long because you were so keen. I have a funny feeling that you would have probably first started playing with the band within about a couple of years, by about the age of 15, 16?
I think my first time out with you guys was probably at the age of around 14.
Right, yeah. Child slave labour, it's what we're known for.
In saying that, though, it was tremendous experience, I have to say. Being a youngster and getting that platform, it's invaluable experience, you know.
Yeah. So you've kind of progressed musically, and I met you recently, obviously in Galashiels, where you were there with a trio, but you've now progressed onto a full 6-piece band in Duns very shortly, very soon.
That is correct. So I'm out with the full 6-piece Scottish dance band. So you will back me up on this, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not very often that you get the chance to stage the the six-piece band,
No.
because there's not many opportunities to showcase
That's right.
it.
That's right.
I was very, very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to stage this at Dunn's at their Masonic Lodge. So that's happening on Monday, the 18th of November, for anyone who would like to come along.
Yeah, well, I've got a meeting this Monday, but the following Monday I'll definitely be there, and we'll see how many we can drag along to that, because it's always a good night in Dunn's. It's a good audience. They're very appreciative. Tell me, moving on to something completely unconnected. Up until about 2016, what did you know about Wisconsin?
Not really a great deal, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I always sort of liked watching programs based on America and things like that. You know, it's always something, as a Scotsman, you like to have a wee look at how things are doing over the other side of the pond, you know. And certainly I didn't know an awful lot, but boy, didn't I get to know a lot more about it in the years preceding that, anyway.
Yeah. So you hadn't heard of? Had you heard of the Green Bay Packers football team?
Yeah, I was aware of them.
Yeah. I'm exactly the same. I was well aware of the Green Bay Packers. I had never heard of Manitowoc until a night out in Glasgow in February. So when did you first watch Making a Murderer?
Well, it's on the back of seeing your videos.
All right.
When you first started posting about this, it sort of ignited a bit of interest in this. I've always had an interest in cases where potential injustice had taken place.
Yeah.
And I've always had an interest in the legal system and possible failings of the legal system, not just here in Scotland, but worldwide. And certainly it was something of a shock to see how far something could actually go wrong based on just purely circumstantial evidence, being honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the case of Brendan, no evidence against him whatsoever, just his confession. But of course, in Steve's case, a load of wonky stuff. But of course, one of the big problems over there in Wisconsin was the fact that, for me, the journalists are simply propaganda merchants. They simply regurgitate what the police have said. But of course, I seem to recall that in the case of Luke Mitchell and Jodi Jones, things were somewhat sort of reversed. It was the press that were perhaps being fed by the police. But tell us a little bit about the sort of the feeling within sort of Dalkeith and Newbattle at that time. Tell us a little bit about.
Well, certainly going back to the time, I mean, I think it was quite evident that there was, in the media's eyes, there was no doubt that it was Luke that was actually guilty of the crime, which at the time I found it really kind of shell-shocked me when I heard about the case initially, because as you can imagine, for me, having walked the same corridors as both Luke and Jodi, and having had friends in the circle of their year group, I know that they were actually 2 years junior to myself.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the same time, we would still be chatting amongst the same friends, you know. And I used to see both Luke and Jodi a lot in the music department, because that was my headquarters at the school, as you can imagine. But I remember looking at the media side of things, and I thought to myself, it seems all a bit conclusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I was maybe young and naive at that point, because then I thought, well, if the media are saying it, then it must be right, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We tend to have these kind of, it's certainly in this country, this country, as in Scotland, as in the UK as a whole, we tend to dismiss things that have gone wrong as they are just a mistake by the police, but this seemed to be a concerted effort by the press to come up with a story that maybe wasn't there.
Yeah, very true indeed. I think the more I look at the situation, I wish I had taken the time to look at more of the facts at the time. Having known Luke, he seemed such a quiet guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't the case that he wasn't really ringing out that he was capable of doing such a heinous crime.
Absolutely.
And I think it's quite upsetting now that I've researched the facts. And may I add, for those, I know you've mentioned it in your videos, but this book here, if for anyone who really would like to know the background of the situation and certainly the story itself, I think you've got quite a wealth of knowledge from Sandra in this book. And I have to say, Sandra has done a wonderful job in painting the story of what really happened in this book, you know?
Yeah. I actually met her at the at Nitton, at the tavern, Dean Tavern.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a chat, and one of the things that we discussed was the Damien Eccles in the West Memphis 3 case. And she said that at one time, when they were looking at it, they were ticking off the comparisons between the West Memphis 3 and Luke Mitchell, and all this sort of supposed satanic worshipping and all this, this would lead to this, that, and the other. Load of nonsense. Anyway, what I was going to ask you then was, so you decided to watch Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
Big question: did you manage it all in one sitting?
To be honest with you, I never managed to do it in one sitting.
No.
As much as I do try to do the odd binge watch on Netflix, it's sometimes it's just work commitments and everything like that just takes over. But between working and obviously the music, it's not always easy to get time to do stuff. But
that's right.
I did watch it sort of in spells, maybe 1 or 2 episodes at a time.
Yep.
But I have to say, when I got into it, and I'm sort of looking at it from an angle of disbelief,
Same here. It's like, and also it's the fact that having been exposed, it's the fact that they're still trying to maintain that there's nothing wrong with it, that there's nothing questionable, that everything was legit and above board. And you've got this huge, that the conflict of interest in was just huge for me when I was told about it. I was thinking, well, no, that can't possibly happen. You can't have the police from the sheriff's department searching and in finding evidence when it's them that have been in this civil suit. Yeah,
to be honest, I think for me there is a glaring comparison between the two cases in particular, between Luke and specifically, let's focus on Brendan for a moment. I mean, obviously, Stephen, there has been a massive injustice in there as well, but particularly, let's take a moment to focus on Brendan and the comparisons between Brendan and Luke.
Yeah.
You look at the law enforcement and the way that they actually have taken a stance on this. It's almost like they have preyed on the naivety of 2 teenage boys.
Yeah.
That, you know, and the glaring thing that sticks out for me is when you're a teenager. Now, bear in mind, I can remember my teenage years, maybe a little bit better than yourself, of course, but you know what I'm saying. It's like when you're a teenager, your mind, to be honest, all you're concerned about at that age is just having fun and just trying to enjoy life and try and embrace your adolescent years, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not really looking at things in maybe an adult perspective, but the types of approaches in both these cases were they were treating these individuals as adults, and that for me, it doesn't sit very well at all.
No, I must admit the one video that we often recommend people to sit through. I know it's 2 hours long, but it's Steve Drizzen and Laura Nyrider. They present a 2 hour long explanation of a true story of a false confession, and I'm sure most people have watched that because it kind of explains what's going on there. The fact that people like Brendan are given two options. The Michael O'Kelly option: either you're sorry for what you did or you're not sorry, but there's no other option. And so we're going to go down one of those routes, and you're just going to agree to everything that we say.
I do think that Laura's work in particular on the Brendan side of things has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, she is one clever lady. I have to hold my hands up and say that what she has actually done in holding her own in pretty much what you would call the lion's den, she has done extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been not critical, but I've been questioning, shall we say, of the performance, particularly the second one in front of the en banc majority. But as a lot of people have pointed out, the lines were already drawn long before the en banc hearing. So therefore, the four judges that voted against Brendan, they weren't going to change their opinion based on anything that was said in those 20 minutes.
I would agree. The writing was very much on the wall with this one, but I think the thing that really strikes home is you look at the judges that are making the U-turn now in their rulings. You know, even on the panels, you can see that there is uncertainty amongst them, and it's just a shame that it's not been enough just to force it over the line just that wee bit further to get the justice for those guys that they deserve, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Steve Drizzen in an email to me said that, whilst it was very disappointing that the Supreme Court wouldn't take Brendan's case, and I pointed out the fact that, at that time, Brendan had been incarcerated for about 11 years or something like that, and I actually put that it was so many days that he'd been locked up, and he put, well, yeah, to Brendan, that to a lot of people that is a long time, to Brendan that is a long time, but he said that sometimes these decisions take decades to unravel, and it does require people to have a new people coming in with new thoughts, new ideas, a new willingness to see the truth. I want to specifically ask you because you did help me tremendously on one particular issue, and that was in my dealings with Ken Kratz. He sent me an email. We exchanged emails, and he said that he said, you do know that all of the 1-star reviews of my book on Amazon are by people who haven't purchased the book. To which you replied, on you go.
Yeah, so that one was a bit of a strange one for me. When I watched that video, I was actually traveling into work on the train.
Yeah.
And I think I may have actually sort of accidentally had a slip of the tongue and let something go out loud when I was actually watching that video, thinking, you cannot be serious.
Or a John McEnroe moment.
Yeah. It was one of those moments where I was looking at it and I was like, right, we all know that you can drop to an all-time low, Kratz, but to actually blatantly talk a lot of rubbish.
Yeah.
And try and be suggestive that what you're saying is in fact the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, bear in mind, we can pick holes in Ken Kratz's views on the Avery case anyway. So is it really any surprise that he was talking nonsense?
Nope.
I mean, he's not going to pull the wool over my eyes, because I have experience in the world of Amazon, being a member of their workforce. I've got knowledge of it. I've probably forgotten more than he'll ever know about it.
Yeah.
But then when I saw that, I thought, right, how can you possibly say that all of the 1-star reviews were from people that hadn't read the book, when there's actually confirmation it's a verified purchase?
Yes.
It's like, why in God's name would you even set yourself up to be made to look like an idiot like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, he was clearly trying to sell me the idea of purchasing the book, and that's all he wanted to talk about, was purchasing the book. And I replied to him, that rather than what I said, what I'll do, rather than purchase the book, because basically you are a disgraced pervert that lost office in 2010, I think it was, when he had to resign as Calumet County District Attorney.
Yeah.
And the grounds on which he had to resign were the fact that he had a woman come to him who had been the subject of a domestic abuse, an attack, strangulation. She'd given him details about her relationship with her boyfriend, and he decided that he was going to take over the boyfriend role and try and seduce her, and also to put pressure on her to have a relationship with him by basically manipulating the fact that he was the prosecutor. He could, for example, he could reduce the charge. He could, make it a misdemeanor, whereby the strangulation was deemed less severe. There were so many things that he had the power over her to try and force the advantage. There's no way I'm going to buy a book by a disgraced pervert. And I'll tell you another reason I wasn't going to buy it was because one of the recommendations I had to read it was from Mark Wiegert, of all people. So that definitely wasn't going to happen.
Well, my take on it was, I was never going to buy a book by certainly written by someone who is a complete and utter fantasist.
Yeah.
I mean, in all areas of the guy's professional role to even now, he's still trying to get his tuppence worth in about the Avery case. And I mean, the guy should just stop now before he ends up, because I'll tell you, when this case does come crashing down, and may I add, it will come crashing down. There's going to be a lot of rubble getting left behind Kathleen Zellner when she tears through it. Now, may I add, I just wanted to add a point about Kathleen. Since I've started studying Making a Murderer 2, and certainly the videos that she's been uploading post Making a Murderer 2, I have to say that the fact she's bringing in specialist opinion, it does actually spell to me that there is going to be certainly a case getting presented that's going to be airtight, you know. Which is really what they need.
Yeah, I mean, when you watched Series 1, one of the things that shouted out to me was, where are the experts? Where are the experts to show that couldn't possibly be the way that they've presented it, And it was just bereft of any type of credible expert, You've got the hood latch by the ignition. Could that have been left by the tip of his finger? Yes, but you'd expect blood everywhere else. Could it have been left by a Q-tip? Absolutely. I think the Americans call it Q-tips. We call them cotton buds, don't we?
Yeah. far too inconsistent with everything for anyone to really look at that. And even not being an expert, you can look at that and you can pick holes all the way through it.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to look at the book reviews of Ken Kratz? Because there was one line in particular that I particularly liked.
I had a look at a couple, but to be honest, when I looked through, I was just taking a general consensus of how many of them there were, and I thought to myself, Jesus, this is quite conclusive that people think that this isn't worth the paper it's written on,
Yeah. My favourite line, I think, was one of the comments was that Ken Kratz comes across as a drunk, swaying, with a broken bottle, flashing out at the world, and telling that the world, I'm right and you're wrong. I'm right and you're, it's words to that effect, and that's exactly what he comes across as.
I think in all honesty, particularly in the grounds that he had to resign from his role, I think that you can see from that it's everyone else's fault but his. He expected to be backed up by the fellow colleagues, and they took a stand against him and said, "Well, no, we're not going to do this."
Yeah, absolutely. So I was gonna read. Have you had a chance to read some of the material that we get sent as YouTubers from the Guilter community?
I've sort of browsed over a few of the specific ones that maybe stood out, but
I tend to always, if I get a comment from a Guilter, I share it. The fact that the Guilter has taken the time to watch the video and then comment to me as if somehow it's something that it's important to them to do. I'm kind of flattered by that, But I just wanted to read the latest comment from Woodpecker Woody. So I'm gonna read to it, and then I'm gonna ask you what your thoughts are in it.
Yeah.
She put, and as I say, I assume it's a she. She put, "Hey Paul, thanks for the mention on your video. I appreciate it, and nice haircut, by the way." I mean, well, I'm glad you like my new haircut. It's it was. I don't know if you remember some of the videos in the past when I was preparing to go to Shetland. I was determined to fit in with the Viking look. Maybe at some point I'll get to up Hellier.
Yeah. Possibly both of us.
Yeah, that would be good fun, wouldn't it? So anyway, nice haircut, by the way. I don't understand why you are placing so much emphasis on what Mike Holbach says in an interview with the press. She's put, I look at it from a different angle, and let me explain why. The guy's sister is missing, no contact by phone or in person, and has not turned up for work. Her vehicle is missing, and the last sighting of her is the Avery salvage yard and home to Stephen Avery and family. Mike Holbach has never been in the public spotlight before, just a normal guy, and suddenly thrown into the media spotlight. You, as in me, are now, by your own admission, an experienced YouTube blogger. I've never done jogging for a long time. Blogger, fighting for justice. And yet you struggle to make a video without making a mistake, even though you have planned it in advance and use reminders next to your computer. You have no idea what he was thinking or feeling. You mentioned what he was thinking or feeling. You mentioned your daughter in the video. Until you have walked in his shoes, how can you comment and even question how someone would react or behave? Well, does that seem reasonable to you?
To be honest with you, I think there's a couple of points that really stick out on this one for me. Now, I know if any of my loved ones were to be missing, I would hang on to every single hope that they were still alive until such times as they were safe. And I would need to have solid confirmation that they had found a body, it was identified as that loved one, before I would be conclusively believing that someone was in effect dead or murdered or whatever. So I'd be hanging on to that hope until it was conclusively confirmed. I certainly wouldn't be referring to them in a past tense. So I think that your approach to that is spot on. Certainly looking at the situation in terms of the insulting side of Teresa's name, if it's being misspelt and everything like that, that can't be called into question, because when you think about it, if anything, you're actually really quantifying what they're actually saying, in the sense that we wouldn't want to see anyone disrespect her because of the fact that, let's not shy away from the fact, whilst there hasn't been solid confirmation, i.e. the bones and everything were not tested and everything like that properly, so we don't know, where is Teresa, where did she end up, what actually happened. But one thing we do know is that in all senses, with the way that this case was conducted, I don't think that they had enough conclusive evidence to actually pinpoint Stephen as the murderer. And in all honesty, until it's, I mean, if it did come back, now I stand by what Kathleen said. If it does come back, which I strongly doubt, if it does come back that Stephen and Brendan were actually guilty, and certainly what was advised within Making a Murderer one was actually legitimate, I'd be the first to actually post a video and apologise to everyone that I've questioned over the last few years, because I'm that sort of guy. I am. Well, you've known me now for what, 20 years, and you know I'm an honest person that will always be down the middle, and I will open my heart to anyone, but I give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and you and I are very similar in a sense. You would agree,
yeah. I mean, let's just. I will just carry on a little bit more of that, because it does mention what you alluded to. I will just finish off by saying that in Woody Woodpecker's message, she says the game plan for you and the Wrecking Crew is undermine every witness at all costs. I get that, but to criticise posters for getting Teresa Holbuck's spelling incorrect is disrespectful to her. How is it being really disrespectful to her? You know, that's almost like a Ken Kratz twist it round. You know, you're the one that's wrong. It's wrong because you've criticised me for spelling her name wrong.
Yeah, to be honest, you will always find with the guilters that they will turn something around to make the individual questioning it, make them out to be the bad one. Now, when I saw that comment, I have to say that that's all that really tells me, that it's clutching at straws more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what did she put at the end? Do you know what the other interesting thing is? The fact that when it comes to guilters, I've always said to them that if you're being sort of abusive and vulgar, then you have immediately lost the argument. We can see that straight away, because all you're doing is you're doing like Ken Kratz. You're an angry drunk swiping at the world with your empty bottle of beer. So in this message, because I've pulled her up in the past for vulgarity and swearing and stuff, you can tell that she's been sort of on the edge. You know, I can sense that she's been really wanting to let rip at some point. So she finishes off by saying, yes, so, but to criticize posters, as in commenters, I would say, for getting Teresa's spelling incorrect, it is disrespectful to her and her family, whilst basically pointing the finger at the brother is shameful. There is no evidence whatsoever that this is just, that there is no evidence whatsoever, and this is just you trying to throw more crap at the case.
Yeah, to be honest, that one, it doesn't really make sense to me, because what I see is you haven't pointed the finger at Mike Halbach.
No.
What you have done is you've said, doesn't it seem strange that he would refer to Teresa in the past tense?
He knows something. Now, he's been told something. He's been given information. Yeah. You know, but what is really strange is that when he first says it, the grieving process could take days. So if he's had proof that Teresa is dead, and why would he be grieving? The fact that it was for days, that doesn't make sense. This tends to fuel very much the suspicions that there is some kind of huge cover-up involved here, which is why it's very important to find out, because of course we have this other unfortunate person, Carmen Boutwell, living in Manitowoc, who passed away on the Wednesday, apparently from a drug overdose. And again, there's suspicion about that because of the type of drug that she overdosed on. Wasn't the sort of regular drug. It's the drug that you take as a treatment for it. I mean, you know, I tried to follow what was going on in. I'm sure we both have watched and enjoyed Trainspotting.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've probably been to a lot of those places in Edinburgh that are featured in Trainspotting.
Oh yeah,
and Glasgow.
You walk into a place and it's like there's a new sheriff in town, sort of a place. Yeah. And then they're all turning around and look at you, and then you're literally going to the bathroom, and it's
yes.
To be honest, you would need to wipe your shoes on the way out. That sort of thing.
I once went to, you know up from Frankenstein's?
Yeah.
There's a place called Espionage.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been in there?
Yeah.
Great place. Great. Do you know why it's called Espionage, by the way? Because Sean Connery, as a student, worked behind the bar there.
All right.
Yeah, hence the name Espionage. But we should explain to the listeners, Espionage is this great nightclub in Edinburgh. Is it called the Old Town area?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually a huge. It's 4 or 5 stories.
Yeah. Different
theme on each level, but some nights I've been in there where the loos have overflowed, and oh dear, it is just like Trainspotting.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, we're havering on a bit here, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does to haver mean, by the way?
Well, basically to kind of spout a lot of unnecessary information. Essentially, for those over the other side of the pond.
Yeah. Basically, to talk often how Ericosi does. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not getting involved in that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I may be pulled up with Ericosi, but I'm sure he'll be gentle with me, since it's yourself he has the ongoing feud with, you know.
Yeah. Yes, I think havering means it's like, you know, where you could say one thing and you put one word and you use 50 words to use it, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
That's another way, and it's also in the context of, you know, in the song itself, we know perfectly well that the guy's gone out, he's had a few to drink, he's come back, you know, see the girlfriend, you know, tell her how much he loves her, but, you know, as I say, instead of doing it with 3 words, it's like 50 or 60 words, you know. That's havering, isn't it? You know. Yeah. In fact, do you want to know, there was when I've been to Shetland 3 times now. And when I went there the first time, I met the fiddler, Mark Lawrenson, who's very well known on the island because he's got relatives that are also well known fiddlers, although he apparently lives in Norway now. But anyway, he was telling me that there was once a Shetland farmer that loved his wife so much he actually told her.
That's brilliant.
And so you get to know what the Shetland sense of humour is. Anyway, so we're digressing. So sort this out. So yes, basically the thing about the guilters is that I get the impression that they are blinded by their hatred of Stephen Avery because of the fact that he's not from the same class of background as a lot of people in Manitrock. I've been to Manitrock. I see this as a class thing, that because he's this scrapyard dealer, away over in the middle of, in the back of beyond, out in the country, scrapyard. I do get the sense that the guilters are kind of blinded by their hatred of him, almost to the extent whereby, because of his past misdemeanors, the cat incident, the driving the Sandy Mars off the road, the burglaries, the fact that even his brothers have got certain records against them, and therefore that any presumption of Steve being innocent just goes out the window just because of his background. I don't know if is that the impression you got?
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to pigeonhole the guy. Mm-hmm. That's the term that I would say is most accurate to use in this instance. I mean, okay, the guy's maybe had some wrongs in the past, but then you look at the situation and you think, well, yeah, everyone can make mistakes, but the most important thing that I think that, my message to the guilters would be that don't look at what has happened in the past with Stephen, but look more at what is actually going on in the here and now with this case.
Yes.
You can't judge someone's character based on what they've done in the past, and then look at a case where there is so much evidence that hasn't been presented in this instance that for me, it is not an airtight, cut and shut case. It's really, there's so much that hasn't actually been brought to the table. Yeah. And my honest fear with this is that because we're so far down the line, there's certain, and I think I speak for both cases, even the Making a Murderer and the Luke Mitchell case. The thing that strikes me is there's so much evidence that would have been best brought to the table literally at the time that wasn't, that now we look at the case further down the line, years down the line, that there is some evidence that you won't be able to get back, Yeah,
I think one of the problems is the fact that we have, certainly in the Luke Mitchell case, we've actually got, people coming forward. I mean, I even spoke to a former Lothian Borders policeman, a few of them, and they're all coming back with the same comment that, Luke, he's 110% guilty. And it's like, as far as guilters are concerned, they cannot accept that they could possibly be wrong on this. Whereas you and I and everybody else is saying, look, if Kathleen Zellner, give Kathleen Zellner the evidence, let her test it, let her come back and say, I've tested the evidence, it proves that Steve did it. Then we're all gonna happily go back. I'm gonna phone the sheriff's department. I am personally going to speak to the sheriff and tell him to personally phone Robert Herman and tell him I apologize for ever doubting your department. Yeah. But here's the crux, isn't it? It's the fact that the guilters cannot bring themselves to ever thinking They were the ones that were duped. This is the reason why I think they often refer to us as, oh, you've just watched a Netflix documentary. You've been duped by Netflix. It's this the fact that they don't want to ever have to accept that they've got it wrong.
That's a very good point. Make no mistake here. If it did come back, and now I know that you just mentioned this, and I discussed it earlier in this video, that if it did come back that either of the cases were indeed correct, in the sense that the correct person or persons were behind bars, then I'd be the first to actually apologise to anyone I've questioned about that. But let's turn it around, and if the shoe is on the other foot, would any of those guilters actually come forward and have the common courtesy and decency to apologise for their blatant ignorance to the fact that there is possibly at this point in time, and I quite believe probably, there is killers that are possibly out there that can strike again,
Yeah, absolutely. It's I have to ask the question then, who are these guilters? Who are these people who will swear, that black is white, even though we've proven to them time and time again in this case, they still come back with no, the right person was arrested, the right people are in prison. I can't help thinking that the majority of those are either Wisconsin law enforcement or past law enforcement, or are connected with law enforcement, and it's simply a case of they probably have a vested interest in it, either directly or through a third party. They are. We know for a fact, for example, that the person that sent the flowers to Judge Angie Sukovich for denying the original motion for a retrial, the flowers were sent by a relative of Dennis Vogel, the guy that that prosecuted Steve the first time. Now, I've kept you long enough now, so I'm just going to finish off by asking. So, if I come along to Dunn's on the 18th, and do a couple of videos of you playing, is that right if I post them on the YouTube channel?
Absolutely, I don't mind.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. And in return, I'll bring along a continental waltz called Fordamina.
Yes, that is our re-agreement.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Derek, I would just like to say thank you very much. We finally managed to get you on. I can't remember how long have we been planning this?
Oh God, it's been months in the planning. I do apologise that I've not been able to get this done before now.
No, my fault.
It's been a very busy few months because I've been moving house, so I now live in out South Lanarkshire way. So
anywhere near Wishaw?
Well, just a wee bit. I'm actually closer to Lanark.
Yeah.
That's where, and for those who possibly have followed your videos, I don't know if you put a post up about Tom Orr and his version of Thunderstruck on the accordion.
Yeah.
Well, he's originally from Lanark, and
that's
I'm just up the road from there. So it's a wee bit of a culture change for me, but I've moved through to this end to be closer to my fiance.
Yes.
As I am getting married next year in Cyprus in July, so it should be good.
Yeah. And luckily, with Thomas Cook collapsing, I believe you managed to wangle a special deal whereby you went from 10 days honeymoon to 14 days honeymoon.
Yeah. To be honest, because it was a destination wedding, we were panicking over the situation. As you can imagine, when Thomas Cook went bust, I was literally on Twitter at the moment it happened, and I thought, oh my God. incidentally, we're still waiting on being reimbursed for the Thomas Cook side of it,
Right.
but we've booked up through Jet2, so I'm very pleased to say that instead of flying out for 10 days, we're actually flying out for 14 days. And I'm pleased to say instead of flying from Newcastle Airport, we are actually flying from Edinburgh, so it's much closer.
Well, listen,
so I can't
pal.
wait for that.
Listen, pal, you're going on your honeymoon. Don't you dare come back with a suntan.
Oh, goodness. To be honest, I'm just... I'm worried about getting married on the beach in a kilt. It's going to be roasting.
Yeah. What tartan is the kilt?
So it's Spirit of Scotland.
All right.
Tartan. It's a purpley tartan.
Yeah,
but I'll make sure and give you a picture so you can upload it of my wedding day for those who are interested. The women and our little audience,
Yeah. Okay. Smashing, Derek. Okay, I think that's about it. As I say, nice to have you on. We finally got sorted out thanks to this new StreamYard thing, which was very, very straightforward. Was it to log in?
Oh yeah, it is. It's really straightforward, even for me, who's a tech phobe.
I'm definitely not.
I found it really easy for me to use, and for anyone who would like a chat on your channel, certainly if I can do it, anyone can. So it would be nice to get more discussions with more of the individuals out there, and hopefully we can do this again at some point. Well, Paul.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to say cheerio and let you enjoy the rest of your day off.
Yeah, I'm just preparing a program for the Duns meeting with the band, so hopefully we'll get that finalised. And I'm also going to head to the gym later on and try and get my shed some of this belly before Cyprus.
All right. Okay, Dazza, take care.
No worries. Take care, Paul. All the very best.
Cheers, mate. Yeah. Bye for now.
Just now, mate.
Bye.